Our first question comes from Dr. Starks, who says, one of my biggest concerns with Coach Pittman is how well he will handle game situations, clock management. Do you have any insight on how he'll deal with it? Do you have any suggestions on how he should? Well, one of his close friends is Barry Odom. He's on the staff. He's been a head coach, so I'm just going to guess that they're going to spend about the next 7 or 8 months talking a lot about game management, but let's get real. Nobody knows, even Pittman, how he's going to handle it until he has to handle it. Do I have any suggestions? Don't listen to somebody like me. I've never been a coach of any kind. Pork Soda observes, Pittman mentioned people might be surprised at who was expressing interest in coaching with him at Arkansas. Do you think that Pittman is going to go after some big-name hires for OC, DC, or do you think he's going to fill those positions with guys he's coached with in the past? Well, as I've already mentioned, Barry Odom is his defensive coordinator. He was available because he was fired as a head coach at Missouri. Now, don't get me wrong, he's a proven coordinator, but that wasn't a surprise hire because he was available. If Pittman takes an offensive or defensive or offensive coordinator or another position coach away from a top 15 team, now that would be a surprise. Is he going to do that? We're going to have to wait and see if he pulls off any shockers, but right now I would say it's more likely that he would get people that were good at what they did on a staff, but that head coach was fired. Now, Lanny wants to know, is there any difference with the current players compared to when Morris was hired? I assume you're talking about talent level, and yes, the talent level is better, but it's also younger. Remember, there's a really good group of sophomores next year. They were all these freshmen that came in. A lot of them played, some of them redshirted, but you're going to have a team that's loaded with sophomores and redshirt freshmen next year with a decent junior class. We'll have to see about the incoming freshmen, but an average senior class. To me, the key right now is to get more out of what they have. And that won't be hard to do because the coaching was really bad the last 2 years. Oklahoma says, curious if Bielema sent a congratulatory message or handwritten letter. Okay, that's an obvious reference to the bad blood between Sam Pittman and Bret Bielema. You know, Pittman joked at his press conference that when he left here after 3 years at Arkansas under Bielema, his wife almost divorced him over that. And I have to assume that given his love and his wife's love for Arkansas, he must have been really mad at Bielema to leave. But here's something to chew on. Think about it. If Sam Pittman had stayed, even though he was mad, if he'd stayed, would Bret Bielema still be the head coach here? And I think he might have. So where would Pittman be? He'd still be an assistant coach here. Here's the thing. I don't think Pittman had a clue that by leaving a job and leaving a place that he really wanted to stay, I don't think he understood that he had just set into motion a series of events that would eventually get him his dream job, the head coaching job here. And life works that way sometimes. Kevin says, I heard Coach Pittman on Feinbaum say that Hunter called him on Sunday morning. Will we ever get the real story of how this coaching search went down? Maybe not. You'll get my story, and that's based on what a lot of people have said. Might be a few little errors here. You never know for sure how totally accurate the information that you get is, but by the same token, what you do is you try to piece things together. This guy said this guy said that, this is more reasonable or whatever. So here's what I think happened. I think Hunter Yurachek started off with 3 names, Matt Campbell, Mike Norvell, and Mike Leach, all proven head coaches, good. Either one, any of them would have been a good hire. I think Campbell turned him down right away. I think Norvell turned him down, and I think Leach wanted a lot of money. So at that point, I think Yurachek zeroed in on Lane Kiffin and even had a verbal agreement with him. But then after that, they find out that Lane Kiffin is talking to Ole Miss, and then Jimmy Sexton, Kiffin's agent, calls in, and he tries to get Arkansas into a bidding war with Ole Miss, and Yurachek at that point just said, we're out. We're looking elsewhere. Now, that was the point, and I think it was on Thursday, where Yurachek was scheduled to do what he thought was a courtesy interview with Barry Lunny Jr. This guy's helped us out as the interim head coach. We got to give him a shot. And he was totally shocked at what happened. I mean, I was told Lunny had a detailed budget presentation. Here's my total football budget. We've been spending money on this. We need to move this over here. This is wrong. This is right. This is what I'm going to do. And it was so detailed and so logical that Yurachek just went, wow. And then he said, here's what I'm going to do in recruiting. This is what we've been doing. Now we're going to do this, 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 and that. Yurachek goes, wow, that makes sense. And then he had the names of most of his coaches. And he apparently told Yurachek, if you don't believe me, I will put you in touch with these people, and they can tell you if I get the job, they're coming here. So you put all that together, and when I walked in here to work on Friday, I'm being told he's got the job. And I was convinced it was true. So what happened? Boosters got involved, boosters that wanted Butch Davis, boosters that didn't want Barry Lunny because they felt like that if the image out there is that Ole Miss stole the coach Arkansas wanted, then Arkansas is looking really dumb to hire a guy that's never been a coordinator and basically has been at programs generally that have not won. And they said, he can't sell tickets until he wins, and how long is that going to take? So at that point, they proposed Butch Davis. I'm talking about boosters, board members, some of them, maybe not all of them. And Yurachek said, nope, I want to check on Sam Pittman, because everybody talks about if you hire this coach, Pittman would come with you. He said, I want to talk to Pittman, find out what this is all about. So he calls him, and when he calls Pittman, Pittman's not there, but his wife answers the phone. She starts crying because they wanted an interview so badly. So that impressed him. Then he talks to Pittman over the phone. It goes so well that he jumps on a jet, goes to Georgia, and he got hired in a matter of hours. Now here's the point. Sometimes you can go through this long process, get turned down here, this thing goes wrong, this looks bad, didn't want this guy, you did want this guy, they didn't want this guy, and you go through this long, convoluted process, and you end up with the guy you should have talked to first all along. I mean, life works that way sometimes, and who knows how Pittman's going to work out. But at this point, that's what it looks like. They did a lot of stuff and ended up with the right guy at the end. Billy Bob asked, what will be the policy regarding the press being allowed to watch practice? Will he, I hope, open it up more than the last three coaches? Well, the only time we've talked to Pittman was at his opening press conference, and that subject did not come up. Didn't seem like one of the most pressing issues, frankly. I think Bielema definitely was more open than Morris, and Sam Pittman was on that staff, and I don't know if that's if he agreed that it should be more open. I have no idea. We haven't talked to him about it. But here's what I would say about any of that. I think the fans, at least on social media, were only concerned about how much access we, the media, got under Chad Morris because he wasn't winning. And they then felt like if we could go in there and watch more practice, we could tell them what was going wrong. For the most part, when teams have been successful, most of the people on social media don't care whether we get into practice at all. So how do we feel about it? Well, sure. If Sam Pittman says in a week or two, hey, you guys just come on in here, we can watch the whole thing, that'd be great. Frank Broyles did that years ago. But it's not the way things generally work these days. And we've been through, all of us in the media have been through enough coaching changes that, look, we just adjust. Whatever you get's what you get. It's not that big a deal. Stu asked, what has surprised you the most, good or bad, about Pittman since being named the head coach? There was so much argument on the internet, Facebook, Twitter, about who the coach should be. And it went weird. It was like, if you're a guy out there and you say you want Mike Leach, all these people start piling on you. We don't want him, and they start talking about what's wrong with him. Okay, if you want. It didn't matter if it was Norvell, if it was Matt Campbell, any of these people, no matter who you mentioned, there was a sizable number of people that said no, and they would give all these detailed reasons why he shouldn't be the coach. So I had reached the point as we neared the end of this coaching search where I said to myself, and I told other people this, I don't think they've got a shot at hiring anybody that's going to have universal or anything close to universal support because everybody's split. It's like politics. You know how people argue about politics? Well, this coaching hire was people were mad at each other. How dare you suggest that name? He might get hired and I don't want him. So when I found out they were going to hire a guy with no previous head coaching experience, really hadn't been a coordinator before, no matter what his reputation as an offensive line coach and a recruiter, I thought to myself, this is never going to fly. They're going to go nuts. And what happened? Almost from the time this started to break, that it looked like it was going to be him, then it was him. He was really accepted on Twitter and not quite so much on Facebook, but that's what surprised me, was the number of people that went, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then when he got up in front of everybody at that, wasn't a press conference, but it was an opening greeting among fans, and when he got all broken up and emotional over that, and that was on television all over the state, I think then people looked and said, yeah, he's the right guy. But that's what has surprised me, the way he was accepted when I thought nobody would be acceptable. Okay, Hogg Davidson wants to know, considering the offensive players on campus, what is his offensive philosophy going forward from year 1 to say year 3 and 4 once he cycles through the current roster? I can only go by what he said so far. And he said initially he wants to run an RPO offense similar to what they've run in the past, which he said is very popular right now, and there are reasons for running it. He did indicate, Coach Pittman did indicate that once he beefs up the offensive line, he might be more inclined to play what he calls bully ball, that is line up and run over people, late in games, say when you've got a 10-point or a 2-touchdown lead or more and you want to burn up clock time, and especially if you're playing a team that's got an explosive offense, you want to keep that offense on the bench. Now, Arkansas did that to Texas Tech in Lubbock when Pittman was the old line coach here. Texas Tech, I think Arkansas ended up with maybe a 10-point to a 2-touchdown lead right after the third quarter started. And so they went into that bully ball mode, and they had the O-line to do it that year. Texas Tech ended up with 3 offensive possessions in the entire second half. That was incredible. I've never seen that before. They got the ball 3 times in an entire half of football. The rest of it was all Arkansas running the ball 5 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards. And you kept that explosive Texas Tech offense on the bench. So I think that's what he's talking about. That wouldn't be his permanent offense, just something he would do late in games. Hog Smash 12 wants to know, has Pittman spoken to Rakim Boyd about returning next year? If so, which way is Boyd leaning? There's been no official word on that, but you got to believe he will, and common logic dictates that Boyd is probably gone. I mean, he's certainly going to be drafted high enough that it would be hard to turn the NFL down. But the fact that he hasn't already declared is kind of interesting, and I can sort of imagine Pittman's, basic pitch to Rakim Boyd, which is, hey, take a look at where you will go now based on the kind of season we had last year. Now let us get in here and coach this team and get this offensive line better, make the offense more explosive. You might go from a 4th or 5th round guy to a 1st round guy. You make yourself a lot of money, so stay. So that would be the pitch. Whether he can do it or not, I don't know, but if he did that, that would be much bigger than landing any 5-star recruit you want to name. Swine Salesman says, you mentioned a prominent coordinator contacted the U of A and was told we are too far along to start the process with a new candidate. With reports about how Dave Aranda wanted a head coach position and his talks with UNLV for their opening, is it safe to assume that he was that coordinator you were talking about? I wasn't given a name. But hey, I'd say based on all the things that I was told, that's a pretty good guess. It lines up right, but I don't think we'll ever know. Midway 642 asks, looking at the schedule for 2020, what is your prediction for Arkansas's record? If they endure another 2-10 season, what would the fallout be? Well, anybody that knows me knows that I hate predictions. I'm not into them, but even though the schedule is going to be tougher next year, I'm going to say flat out, they're not going to go 2-10 again. There was never an excuse for that, not even the first season. I'm pretty confident that Sam Pittman's going to put together a better staff, and pretty confident that that staff is going to coach these players better. So all I will say as far as a prediction is they will win 4 games minimum, maybe a little more than that. Okay, let's go to some basketball questions now. Kyle Hogg 32 asks, Mike, why do you think Henderson isn't getting more playing time in the non-conference games? He seems to bring good energy and is a good rim protector. Would love to see him get 15-plus minutes a game. He's still raw. Musselman is bringing him along slowly. I think when you see him, it's almost always because he's had a really good week of practice. I think he'll play more in the future, but that will be the kind of the test. Did you do really well? Did you give us a reason to believe you should play? And some of it might be the matchup, the team that they're matching up against. But I would just say be patient. We'll probably see more of him. August Maximus wants to know, what do you think the Hogs' record will be going into the postseason, and do you think they will make it to the NCAA tournament? Well, they got 2 left, and I think they'll split those games, so I think they'll end up 10-2 before conference play starts. That last game before SEC play starts is against Indiana, and beating Indiana in Bloomington is going to be tough. And that's interesting because that's going to be a rematch of the postseason NIT game those two played in Bloomington last spring. Now, that was a 3-point game. So you say, well, Arkansas is better this year. Maybe they can win it this time. Well, the problem is Indiana's better too. They're 10-1 right now, and they beat a ranked Florida State team. I think they were 17th at the time, and they beat them by 16 in Bloomington. They did, however, get hammered by Wisconsin by 20 points, and Wisconsin's only 5-5, but that was a road game. As far as the NCAA tournament, I'm going to take a stab and say they will get in if they keep playing the way they are right now, but I think a lot of it has to do with how many teams gets in from the SEC. Now, Arkansas's got the second best record in the SEC right now. That's probably going to change once conference play starts, but if they got 5 teams in, I think it'd be a little more difficult for Arkansas to get in. If it gets 6, then I think they've got a shot, but I'm going to go on a limb right now and say, yeah, I think they'll get in. Okay, let's see. Pork Soda is back with a hoops question. He asked, what were the recruiting needs in basketball, and how well do you think Musselman has addressed them so far? They needed size, and they got it in Jalen Williams, an athletic 4-star big man out of Northside. He's having a great season so far. And this recruiting class, Musselman's first true recruiting class, is currently ranked top 5. So you can't argue with that. I think, yeah, he's right now addressed future needs really well. But that's if these guys sign, because those people are committed. And there's pretty much an indication that most of them are going to wait until the late signing period so they can see how well Arkansas does this year. The Bionic Pig says Nevada averaged over 80 points per game last season for Coach Musselman. Is that lack of a Daniel Gafford or a Connor Vanover roaming the interior having that much effect on the shooters? No, I don't think that has anything to do with it. There have been a lot of theories about Arkansas's lack of scoring, most of it centered around intense defense. I think the fans have all said, okay, this is more like when Eddie Sutton was here. You're playing better defense, you're scoring less, but you're giving up less, so it's just a natural byproduct. And then there are other people that said, hey, if you take an Isaiah Joe, and he's primarily a 3-point shooter last year, and you develop him into a more complete player, then that might hurt his scoring a little bit. But you get back better rebounding, he's a better point guard, he plays better defense, yada, yada. But it was interesting. After Arkansas scored 98 points in the Tulsa game, Musselman said in his press conference that people had sort of misrepresented this thing. He never intended for this to be a low-scoring team. He said he wanted them to score more points. And he believed that the reason they did that against Tulsa was because he'd been emphasizing that the guards need to push the ball up the floor more and they need to get their offense in motion quicker. And that was interesting because then Mason Jones came in, and his explanation was entirely different. Now, he scored 41 points in that game, and he said the reason Arkansas scored so many more points than they usually do is that Tulsa trash-talked them before the game. And they got mad, and he said we were just more intense. Now, if that's the case, then maybe Coach Muss needs to figure out ways to tick his guys off before games. 3 and Out wants a Razorback memory question answered. How much do you remember from the fist fight that broke out at a Razorback basketball game in the 70s? I think I was just a kid at the time. I remember on the radio, I remember they called it, I remember the call on the radio. I remember Sidney Moncrief was a handful to restrain, and he was taking out guys right and left. Well, I was there that night. I wasn't listening on the radio, and I don't think Sidney actually took anybody out. The refs got onto that pretty quickly. What I remember is being shocked at just how quickly Sidney exploded. He was getting bumped and hacked and pushed a lot, and he suddenly just started swinging at air. I don't think he hit anybody. And as I said, the refs got on it pretty quickly. The damage that I recall was to a fan who came out onto the floor, and one of those big Aggies just took the guy by his heavy coat and just kind of threw him to the ground. And that was the end of that. Okay, this reminder, if you want your question answered, you have to be a member of Hoggville. That's the largest Razorback fan board with 25,000 members and more than 10 million posts by those members. You can get the latest recruiting news from Otis Kirk and Kevin McPherson, content from our Pig Trail Nation site, and it's all free. Just go to hoggville.net, sign up, get a username, and post your questions for me. That's all of our time for now. Join me again next Monday when I'll be back to answer more of your questions on Ask Mike.